Hi, everybody, and welcome to another installment of the Obscurity of Maximum Security with me, Kara Phillip, and most importantly, Mike Johnson. So what are we going to talk about today?
Well, March 13th, 1986, not a date that will live in infamy, but it's the date of probably the worst ass kicking I ever got in my professional or private life. I had been working 5 days a week in the West Cell House. And we had a lot of inmate on inmate things going on, fights and stuff like that, and your typical things, that you have to break up. And well, this one day, ran the yard out as usual. So the inmates are out on the yard, and I was working the top half with another officer. And then there was another guard downstairs. He had 1 and 2. And we had another officer working the door. And of course, you had a sergeant. Okay. So anyway, they're out on the yard, and we had a guy out, an officer out there on the yard with the inmates. He was newer. Well, they started acting up out there, and they were, talking smack. And so the guard called the Sarge on the radio and said, can you come to the yard? They're acting up. Whatever was said. I don't know. I was upstairs. So anyway, he goes out there, and apparently they decided that they were going to, talk to him the same way. And of course, he wasn't going to have any of that. And now out on the yards, there's telephones. And the phones are controlled by a switch in the armory. So when we'd run the guys out in the yard, you'd get on the radio, call the armory, and say, turn the phones on in the West Yard, please, or something, They'd flip the switch. The inmates could get on the phones, call anybody in the world, collect, as long as that person accepts the charge, okay? So anyway, there's some guys on the phone, and the Sarge says, that's it. I'm calling yard. It's over. And it was probably about 15 or 20 minutes early, but he was pretty ticked off. And so he calls the armory, cut off the phones. There's some guys on the phone. They hit the switch. Their calls are cut off. And one of them said, hey, I was talking to my mother or something, and he was like, and no one's, I don't want to say exactly what he said, but, is from what I heard what he said. But apparently, let's just say he said, I don't care.
Wasn't too sympathetic.
They run the guys off the yard. All right. Taking them back, line movement. Okay. Back to the West Cell House door. And between the yard and the West Cell House door, they decided, okay, we're gonna get somebody. And they hit the door. Now, the other guard and myself, we were upstairs. We heard it. We both were in there 5 days a week for a while, and we're thinking, okay, hey, I yelled over to him, I remember, you hear that? He goes, yeah, I'm coming, because we thought we were going to have to break up another fight. So we go running downstairs. They had hit the door. They bowled over the lieutenant and stomped on him a little bit. I remember his leg was hurt afterwards.
Just his leg, good.
Yeah, and they got on those stairwells. And this is in the West Cell House, not the doorway we go in all the time, or used to go in. The other one that you're not supposed to go in because it's right next to the guard hall. Those stairwells, they're pretty narrow.
They are, yeah.
So the inmates are running up the stairs, and the other guard and myself, we're coming down, and we ran right into them. So we got, beat up a little bit, and we got, I got down to the bottom right by the West Cell House office, and this inmate was standing against the wall, and he hit me a couple of times in the head. So he goes to run, and I reached up and I got him by the collar. You know, he's wearing like a jean jacket thing, you know, that the inmates had.
Yeah.
And I started getting them down, and then I saw the pitter patter of little inmate feet, and wham! I got kicked right in the face, broke my glasses. And well, I let go of the guy at that point, and then I got kicked and danced on a little bit. And somebody had got on the radio and 1010, 1010,
Yeah.
665, you know, fight West South.
Fight, yeah.
Well, you know what? At that point, all the inmates had run upstairs. And the other guard and myself, we were pretty vigilant, and we kept the gates locked to the galleries. I always was a real stickler for that. Because if you leave that thing open, they're running all over, you know, and going down galleries they shouldn't be on, and maybe stealing something from other inmates or whatever, you know.
I mean, even so, what's so wild to me, so you didn't have cameras.
No, not at that time.
So no one was watching. No one knew until somebody got on the radio, you know, so somebody, if you had been apart from, or if everybody was separated from the radios, no help was coming.
And no towers in the cell houses.
And no towers, so nobody's watching.
So it's you and your dukes.
And as far as like even locking, so you say I was vigilant. Nowadays, there's like a master control that is not only watching, but opening your doors for you and everything.
Oh, wow.
Yeah,
we did it all key by hand.
So if you lost the keys, didn't have the key, you are stuck where you are. No one can come and save you, essentially.
Right.
You know?
And we used to lock ourselves on the gallery too. When we'd open the gate, I'd always lock myself on. And if the inmates, you know, I mean, there's so many of them. If they decide they're going to get the keys, they're going to get the keys.
And they're getting out. Like there's nobody to like do the next level of keeping it locked.
Right. So anyway, what happened was they all ran upstairs and they were kind of trapped. I mean, the ones that lived up on the top half, they were stuck on the flags. That's that area off the stairwells in front of the gallery. Yeah. Okay. And, well, of course, help came. And they took all the IDs from every inmate up there. And I believe there was like 35 inmates involved.
Wow.
And they got everybody's ID. They locked everybody up. And then we went down. I walked down to the prison hospital. And I was cut and bleeding. And the other guard who was upstairs was knocked out. He had a broken jaw. And the guard that was on the main floor, he had 1 and 2 gallery. He had a broken nose. And I mentioned the lieutenant's leg was messed up. And I think we can continue this on the next segment.
I think so. So so introduction to the fight. So thank you for watching this episode of The Obscurity of Maximum Security, and with Kara Phillip, and most importantly, Mike Johnson. And stay tuned for the next episode.